It's funny. I wasn't nervous. It's so funny. I know. Well, to answer your first question, I've never taken a writing class.
That must piss a lot of people off in this town. That must be the worst thing.
Maybe, but some people, I think writing classes can be very effective and very helpful. But I just never did.
Right.
I kind of on the job training. But I think it was one of those things where you're so blessed, you're so stupid and so ignorant about the business. You don't know enough to be nervous, at least at the beginning. I was nervous when I walked into that meeting. I knew I had an hour to either give myself the life I really wanted or not get it. Or at least have to wait a lot longer to get it. I knew enough that if I can get a Sopranos episode, that's got to mean something, because this show was really popular. And I do remember sitting in the basement of my in-laws' house in Jersey, and they have my father-in-law has a little basement office he keeps down there, and just filled with bric-a-brac and shit. And he's a little desk, and I remember sitting there on my computer, and that's where I went to type. It was quiet there, and I started typing, and I got to I don't know, 3/4 down on the first page, and I typed in the word Tony. I was about to write dialogue for Tony Soprano. And that's the one time it hit me. And I took my fingers off the keyboard and I kind of pushed away from the desk for a second and just went,
This is fucking real.
This is fucking real.
This is real.
I'm about to write something that Tony Soprano's going to say. So it should be good. And, it was a good episode. It was the episode where at the end, Tony told Assemblyman Zellman, "Go ahead, you can sleep with the Russian girl."
And beat her up with
and
the
then he
belt.
takes his belt off and he rips the shit out
That's
of him.
a good episode.
And that was also the one where they shot up they bought the crack house, the HUD house.
Right.
They pulled out all the copper piping, and then they just used the loan money. And that was a fun episode. There were some good lines in it that that I wrote that I think did well, and it's still to this day an important credit on my resume.
Absolutely.
When people say you wrote for that show, because people in the business know I beat 1 in 10 million odds getting that job with no. The first thing I ever had produced was a Sopranos episode. The first time I ever saw my name on television was my wife and I had moved out, because it took so long with HBO to actually. We moved out to L.A., and then a few months out in L.A., they finally aired the episode. And we were living in this tiny little apartment, and I sat on the couch, and we got the New York feed, so we got to see it earlier.
7 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
5 o'clock or something.
And I sat there and watched it on TV, and my name came up, and I started to cry, because I said to my wife, I'm like, "You're the only one, who thought I could do it." It was nice.
What was it like? How much time was there between you sending in the script and you hearing back that he liked it? Because I can imagine, he might be worried that he's going to call and say, "I hate it, you made a mistake." No,
he was very kind. I mean, he said to me, and he was honest, and I didn't realize at the time that it's very common. And now that I'm a showrunner and I've created 3 television shows now that have gotten on the air, I've been very, very blessed, that, when you have a tone and a voice of the show, a showrunner will take it and tweak it and make changes or blah, 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 or do a wholesale rewrite. In this case, he said to me, he's like, "Look, I'm going to go through it and do this, that, or whatever." And I was like, "Oh no, maybe, he's being nice. Maybe he doesn't really mean it. He's telling me I could be a good writer." And I called up my agents, and they said, "No. This is the way it works." And then when the final script came out and I saw it, 80% of, I'd say the C story had changed, which they told me was going to happen. But I'd say, 70-80% of my dialogue was there. And there were some lines in there. It's when Paulie gets out of prison, and they're like, "Paulie, what can I get you?" And he's like, "After 6 months inside, how about laid?" And at the end, Tony goes, "I never thought I'd say this, but to the federal government," when he's cheering, because they stole the federal HUD money. And so that's all stuff I wrote, and where I grew up in New York, everyone talks like that. It's how and these guys, and how they talk, and they're they're very charming, fun guys.
You know who had a good line in that scene?
Who's that? You probably know it better than I.
Sharippa. When he goes, "Hold on," and they play his song by Sinatra, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden he goes, "This is his song," and he goes, "Why is it his song?"
Is that in that episode? I don't even remember.
That's that episode, because I remember it now.
I haven't seen that episode in probably 10 years.
It was on It's funny.
It's called watching too much television.
Right, but The Sopranos was on, and then they were on A&E for a while. And I'd catch them on
Yeah.
A&E, and that's when, in the daytime, I'd be bored. They came on like at 3 or something. That's a great time. They didn't dick on. So I started watching them, and that's when he has that line. He goes, "Why is it his song? Everybody's got a song."
Yeah, everyone's got a song.
Why is it his song?
He was great on that show. He brought a lot of sweetness to that character. It was great. Yeah, they replaced the storyline I didn't write at all. They replaced the AJ storyline with the story of Chris and his girlfriend, and she doesn't think she has to testify against him, and she goes to the lawyer, and the lawyer's like, "You've been watching too much television." That was the name of the episode. And I think that was like 4 or 5 scenes that I had zero to do with. I think Terry Winter came in and wrote, and Terry's such a great writer.
And from there, you went to Prison Break.
No, from there, then I moved out to L.A. to look for work, and my wife and I were out here, and I quit my law job. She was a tenured teacher. She quit that job. And when I asked her, I said, "Listen, I think maybe we should give this a shot." I'll never forget. She looked at me and she said, "Okay." She goes, "It'll be an adventure. If it doesn't work, we can come home." That was it. And we moved. And it was hard. All my family was back. All my family's back. I come from a very close family, a very big family, a very close family. Moved out here, and I was out here I was unemployed 16 days. I just got a horseshoe up my ass. Just a lucky guy. And I got a job on a show called The Guardian on CBS. It was season 2 of The Guardian. It was with Simon Baker and Dabney Coleman. It was picked up for 22 episodes. We wound up doing 23. I got paid for a whole year as a writer. I wound up as a baby staff writer, getting my name on multiple scripts that year, really writing a lot. Sony, only time this has ever happened to me in this business, Sony gave me something for nothing. They were the studio, and they said, this kid's doing a great job. We need to promote him. They didn't ask me to give him a pilot script in return. They didn't ask for another year on my contract. And they promoted me within a year. I was up 4 levels. I went from a staff writer to a co-producer on the show. And then when that was over, I went to Law & Order. I did that for 1 year. While I was on Law & Order, I created a reality show called Beauty and the Geek that ran for 5 years on the WB and CW. Do you remember that show?
Yeah.
And that I'd never done reality before. Haven't done it since. But that's when reality was in its heyday.
Right.
And I just said, I remember watching a commercial, and a network had a show called The Littlest Groom, which was basically Who Wants to Marry a Midget. And I said, and they pulled it. They never aired it. They pulled it because people got so offended by the commercials. But I remember watching the commercials, and I said to my wife, this shit, we're in trouble because I'm a writer, and this shit's not written. And I got to, if you can't beat them, join them. And a month later, we had Beauty and the Geek sold. That got on the air. And then I went from there, from Law & Order to Prison Break, which was the best 4 years of my life. I mean, what a group of writers. All those writers on that show, man, they were amazing. And we did that, made some of the best friends of my life, worked hard, had fun. And from Prison Break, created a show with a friend of mine called Breakout Kings. That ran for a couple of years.
A&E.
It's a very fun show, good show.
Dominic Lombardozzi.
He's like, Dom, he's like my brother, that guy.
No, I've never met him. I just see him in 29,000 fucking
He's
things.
the best human being, the nicest guy.
Another fucking guy with a mobster name.
Yeah, but he's a good man.
Everybody says he's very cool.
And you want to talk about an actor that will just give you his heart and soul. I mean, he'll do it. He'll just do it. And he and I, we become close. We're like brothers. I love him. And did that. During that time, I put out a couple of books. I had my first novel, Slip and Fall, my second novel, 15 Digits. They both did well. The first one was a national bestseller. And so that was an interesting, different type of storytelling, books. And then what did I do after that? I did Breakout. Then I did Vegas. For the 1 year it was on, I wanted the opportunity to work with Nick Pileggi. Anyone who writes Goodfellas and Casino is all right by me. The coolest cat you'd ever want to meet. 81, I think he's 82 years old now. He was 80 when I worked with him, and he showed up every single day more energy than anyone in that room, the nicest man, the most decent man. And you want to talk about humble? I mean, I don't know about you guys. If I wrote Goodfellas, I'd wear a T-shirt every day that said I wrote Goodfellas. I'd never stop. I mean, listen to me now. All I'm doing is talking about myself. I haven't done shit in this business. And Nick Pileggi never. You got to pull it out of him. And I did. I made him crazy every day. I was like, "Hey, Mr. Pileggi, remember that scene when Pesci goes, when little young Pesci goes, hey, how you doing, Hendry?" I go, "Why do you call him Hendry? Why didn't he call him Henry?" I'm like, "Was that a mistake?" But I mean, every day. And the best was, he's like, "No, that was scripted." He goes, "We knew a guy in our neighborhood. He couldn't say
People
Henry."
from the Bronx.
Yeah, he called him Hendry.
Henry Earl.
Yeah.
They really said Earl. I went to school with a family, the Balzanos, and the mom, Marianne, was from the Bronx. And she said that. She would say Hendry.
Yeah.
Hendry, Earl, instead of oil. She had a couple words that were just fucking tremendous. Hendry, yeah.
Oh, and I drove him crazy, and he was so patient with me. He answered every single question because I loved him. He's the nicest man. Everyone called him Nick. I refused to call him Nick. It was Mr. Pileggi. Out of respect for what he did. Also, he's 80 years old. You call him, I'm like, in my kids' school, all the kids are like, they call all their friends' parents by their first name. I tell my friends' kids, I'm like, "My name's fucking Mr. Santora. Call me Mr. Santora, you little 10-year-old shit."
Yeah. You have to. That's how I was raised also.
Yeah, and I called him Mr. Pileggi, and he said to me, he's like, "Please, Nick." And I was like, okay. And I tried it. My mouth wouldn't say it. I tried this. I couldn't do it. And I said to him, "Mr. Pileggi, if it makes you really that uncomfortable, I'll call you Nick." I'm like, "But it's just not right to me."
We're going in like fucking Marines. You understand me?
Welcome to church, motherfucker.